On the left hand side of the University of Mysore, Professor Professor Srinivasa, Dean R&D, Technology, Bengaluru, Professor M. Chandrasekhara, Dr. Meera PL, Professor Shavni Paras, and Dr. Rajendra Babu, the organizer of the conference. Namaskara. A pleasant morning to one and all. Welcome to the National Conference on Academic Writing, Libraries, and Artificial Intelligence Apply, jointly organized by Mysore University Information and Library Science Alumni Network, MILAN, Department of Studies in Library and Information Science, University of Mysore, MILIS, and Mysore University Library. A couple of weeks ago, a tweet by author and video game enthusiast Joanna Mazuska. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing. Not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes. Made a lot of buzz on the Twitter. So the time is opportune for library and information professionals and other AI enthusiasts to contemplate upon the impact and implications of artificial intelligence in their respective fields. In that regard, this conference is highly timely. So, while this tweet intrigued some of us, some others got intimidated. Well, let's decode this in this two-day intellectual extravaganza. So we are at the curtain raiser event, the inaugural ceremony of this two-day national conference. Let's begin this inaugural ceremony by invoking the blessings of the Almighty. To do the invocation, I invite the students from University College of Fine Arts, University of Mysore, Ms. Anisha, Ms. Bhuvana, and Ms. Shobha.
जय जगदीश्वरी माता सरस्वती, जय जगदीश्वरी माता सरस्वती, शरणागत प्रतिपालनहारी, शरणागत प्रतिपालनहारी, जय जगदीश्वरी माता सरस्वती। वीणा वीणा सामगीत ध्वनि मधुर प्यारी, सामगीत ध्वनि मधुर प्यारी, जय जगदीश्वरी माता सरस्वती। श्वेतवसनं कमलं श्वेतवसनं कमलं संगसखी शुभहंस सवारी, संगसखी शुभहंस सवारी, जय जगदीश्वरी माता सरस्वती। ब्रह्मांड ब्रह्मानंद में जय जगदीश्वरी माता सरस्वती शरणागत प्रतिपालनहारी जय जगदीश्वरी माता सरस्वती जय जगदीश्वरी माता सरस्वती.
Thank you for your melodious rendition. I now request the Vice President of MILAN, the Chairman of MILAN, and the Conference Co-Chair, Professor Chandrasekhara, for his welcome address.
Good morning, esteemed guests, distinguished speakers, and dear participants. On behalf of the Mysore University Information and Library Science Alumni Network, popularly called as MILAN, the Department of Studies in Library and Information Science, and the Mysore Library, it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome you all to the inaugural function of the National Conference on Academic Publishing, Libraries, and Artificial Intelligence. First and foremost, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our chief guest, Padma Bhushan, Professor P. Balram, former Director of Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. We are truly honored by your presence and look forward to your insights, and that will surely set an insightful tone for our conference. Welcome, sir. I request Professor M.S. Hariman to hand over. Thank you, sir. Our gratitude and welcome extends to Professor Loknath N.K., the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University of Mysore, for presiding over this event. Your support and encouragement have been instrumental in organizing this conference. Welcome, you, sir. I request Professor Aditya Kumari K. to hand over a bouquet to Professor Loknath. Thank you. Our Vice Chancellor. Thank you, sir. I am equally delighted to welcome our keynote speaker, Professor Srinath Srinivasa, Dean R&D at the International Institute of Information Technology, Bangalore. Your expertise and vision in the field of research and development will undoubtedly inspire and enlighten us. On behalf of this conference organizing committee, I welcome you, sir. I request Dr. Sunil Kumar Yang to hand over a bouquet to Dr. Srinivasa. Thank you, sir. We are also privileged to have Dr. Shalini Aras, former professor of our Department of Library and Information Science and former executive director of ISIM, University of Mysore, as our conference director. I welcome Dr. Shalini Aras, whose invaluable guidance and leadership has helped in bringing this conference to execution. Welcome, ma'am. I request Dr. Nandish to hand over. Thank you. Thank you, Nandish. I would also like to acknowledge and welcome our organizing committee members, Dr. Meera B.M., former librarian, Raman Research Institute, Bangalore, and the president of MILAN, and also the chairman of this conference. Welcome, ma'am. Dr. Nivedita. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Rajendra Babu H, Organizing Secretary of the Milan and the conference is also here. Welcome, you, sir. Dr. Anika, hand over. And Dr. Nandish B and Dr. Sunil Kumar, organizing secretaries of the conference, and many others personalities of the library also here. And also I welcome Rapporteur General of today's national conference, Dr. N.S. Harinana, and the keynote speakers, panelists, and the delegates. To all the participants, research scholars, academicians, and practitioners who have joined us today, your presence and contributions are what make this conference a meaningful platform for the exchange of knowledge and ideas. We are excited to have you with us and look forward to your active participation in this today's conference. I would like to welcome the faculties in the Department of Library and Information Science, as well as from other departments, and also the heads of the departments of the various departments of University of Mysore, particularly the Computer Science professor is here, Professor D.S. Guru, Professor H.S. Nagini Swami sir, and also the university authorities of the Mysore Executive Committee members of the Milan and all library professionals who are gathered here. Welcome you all. A special welcome to the media persons who have joined us to cover this event. I welcome the media persons too. This conference aims to explore the dynamic intersection of academic publishing, libraries, and artificial intelligence. It is a topic of immense relevance and importance in today's rapidly evolving digital landscape. Over the course of this event, we encourage in a thought-provoking discussions, share innovative research, and collaboration in shaping the future of our fields. Once again, welcome to all to this conference. May this conference be a memorable and enriching experience for all. Thank you, one and all.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to welcome the person who welcomed all of us, Professor M. Chandrasekhara, the Vice President of Milan and the conference co-chair. On all your behalf, I cordially welcome him to the inauguration of this conference. Moving on, when we have such a galaxy of luminaries on the dais, organizers deem it fit that it needs a special introduction. So, to specially introduce all the guests and dignitaries on the dais, I welcome the President of Milan and the conference chair, Dr. Bira Leo.
Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am extremely delighted to welcome you all to this two-day national conference on academic publishing, libraries, and artificial intelligence, MILAN-APLAI 2024. We hope that the deliberations in this conference will serve as a valuable resource to those who are involved in academic and scholarly publishing to perceive artificial intelligence technology as transformative force. I'm not going to any further to delve into AI and the theme of the conference. We have invited experts to deliver keynotes on various aspects of conference theme. We also have two panel discussions in addition to invited papers. We are eager to listen to their expertise. My primary responsibility as president of Milan and also as conference chair is to run our welcome address and introduce our guests on the dais. We have eminent personalities with us to inaugurate the National Conference on Academic Publishing, Libraries, and Artificial Intelligence. It is my great pleasure and privilege to welcome and introduce the most distinguished scientist, Padma Bhushan, Professor P. Balram, to this august audience. Professor Padmanabhan Balaram, former director of the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, is a well-acclaimed Indian biochemist. He obtained his BSc in 1967 from Pune University, MSc in 1969 from IIT Kanpur, and PhD in 1972 in chemistry from the Carnegie Mellon University, USA. He was a research associate at Harvard University during 1972 and 73. He served on the faculty of the Molecular Biophysics Unit, Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore from 1973 to 2014. He was director of IASC from 2005 to 2014. He has been associated with the National Center for Biological Sciences, Bengaluru, since 2017. His research contributions have been in the areas of molecular biophysics and chemical biology. He was the editor of Current Science from 1995 to 2013, during which he authored over 300 editorials on diverse subjects related to science and scientists. He is the recipient of several awards and honors, including Padma Shri in 2002, Padma Bhushan in 2014, and the R. Bruce Merrifield Award in 2021 of the American Peptide Society, Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Award in 1986, and many more. He has made significant contributions in the area of popularization of science and scientific policy. Sir, on behalf of the organizing committee of the conference and on my personal behalf, I am extremely delighted to welcome you to inaugurate our conference and deliver the inaugural address. Professor M.K. Lokanath, Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University, was kind enough to accept our invitation when we approached him to preside over this event. When we informed him that the chief guest of the day is Professor Balram, he was humble enough to say, "What do I expect me to speak in his presence? He is our guru." Professor Lokanath holds PhD from the Department of Studies in Physics from University of Mysore. He was a postdoctoral fellow at the Samsung Biomedical Research Institute, Swan, South Korea during 2000 and 2002. He held the position of scientist at Riken Spring Aid Center, Harima Institute, Kyoto, Japan during 2002 and 2007. He is the nodal officer for RUSA, National Education Policy, Cosmos Project, etc. He is the principal investigator and coordinator for many projects at the Department of Physics. He has organized many national and international conferences. Professor Lokanath is the recipient of awards like Faculty Research Award by Career 360 India and Sir C.V. Raman Young Scientist State Award 2014, Government of Karnataka. He has published more than 465 research papers in reputed journals. He has 2 patents to his credit. He has delivered over 85 invited lectures in different forums. Sir, it is my honor to welcome you to preside over this conference, this event on behalf of the conference organizing committee and also on my personal behalf. On the dais, we have another person, eminent person, Professor Srinivasa with us. When we approached him to deliver keynote at the inaugural session, he readily agreed, and the title he has chosen is interesting. And the title is AI and the Game of Science. I have the honor of introducing him to the august audience. Professor Srinath heads the Web Science Lab, is the Dean at the International Institute of Information Technology, Bangalore. Professor Srinath holds a PhD from the Berlin Brandenburg Graduate School for Distributed Information Systems, Germany, and MS by Research from Indian Institute of Technology, and BE in Computer Science from our own National Institute of Engineering, Mysore. His research interests are in the area of web science, understanding how World Wide Web is affecting humanity and how the web can enable social empowerment and capability building. Professor Srinath has participated in several initiatives for technology-enhanced education, including the EduSat program by the Vishweshwarya Technological University. He has served as technical reviewer for various journals like the VADB Journal, IEEE Transaction, etc. He has also served as an associate editor of the Journal of Sadhana from the Indian Academy of Sciences. He is also the recipient of various national and international grants and awards from foundations and companies. Sir, it is my proud privilege to welcome you to this maiden conference of our Alumni Association on behalf of the organizing committee and also on my personal behalf. We are eager to listen to your expert information on area and view of science. And now we have Professor Shalini as my revered teacher at Library School from the Department of Studies in Library and Information Science, University of Mysore. She is our conference director. She was my teacher in early 1980s. She needs no introduction to most of us here. However, I consider it my privilege to introduce her to the gathering. Dr. Shalini Aras is a distinguished information scientist. She holds a master's degree in library and information science and a postgraduate diploma in computer science. Her doctoral research delved into cognitive aspects of relevance decision in information retrieval systems. Dr. Shalini Aras began her academic career at the University of Mysore in 1976. She spearheaded the electronic thesis and dissertation and digital library movement in India in 1999. She launched the Vidyanidhi Digital Library Project and organized the first international conference on Asian digital libraries in 2001. She founded the International School of Information Management at the University of Mysore with significant grants from Ford Foundation, India Limited, and Noida School also. Dr. Aras has published over 200 research papers in international journals. She is a recognized speaker on digitally enabled scholarship with a focus on digital libraries, open science, and social network analysis. Notably, she has authored an invited review paper on digital libraries in the prestigious Annual Review of Information Science and Technology. She has received grants from diverse agencies for her research projects, awards and recognitions also. Madam is the founder and patron of MILAN. She is our conference director and guided us throughout in organizing this conference. Madam, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this inaugural event. Professor M. Chandrasekhara is the chairman of Department of Studies in LIS and co-chair of this conference. I have pleasure in welcoming you too. And Dr. Rajendra Babu is assistant professor from the Department of Studies in LIS, Tumkur University. He is the secretary of MILAN. Finally, it is my great pleasure to welcome all the keynote speakers, panelists, delegates, participants, authors, and invited guests. University staff and media, this inaugural function of MILAN-APLAI 2024 National Conference. Hope you all will have a wonderful time and stay wisely. Thank you all.
We all know that how the conference is driven across these 2 days pretty much depends on setting the right tone for the conference. So the unanimous choice of the organizers to do this honors was Professor Shalini Aras, the former professor of MILAS, former executive director of ICM, and the conference director. I now welcome Professor Shalini Aras for her introductory remarks about the conference. There's a slight change in the schedule. First, we'll have the inauguration of this 2-day national conference. I request Padma Bhushan, Professor P. Balram, to kindly inaugurate the conference by writing the ceremonial lamp. I request Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University of Mysore, Professor Srinath, and all the other dignitaries on the dais to kindly join in the inauguration. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel a round of applause. It's now time for the release of the conference volume. The call for papers for the volume evoked a good response, and after thorough similarity check, including AI-generated similarity check, 28 papers have been finalized, and we are witnessing the release of the conference volume. I request the dignitaries on the desk to kindly release the conference volume. I now welcome Professor Sharan for the remarks.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Meera, for your generous introduction. My task here is to introduce the theme of the conference and how we went about it, etc. However, my task has been placed at an extreme minimize because everyone has been talking about the theme of the conference. So before I get into the theme of the conference, I thought I would set the context also about Milan, because Milan has not been mentioned so much in the sense of its history. So I would like to say that perhaps I hold the distinction of having been associated with the Department of Library Information Science and University of Mysore the longest, because I graduated rather at the decennial year of my department, that is in the year 1975, and joined the department in 1976, and participated as a faculty member during its Silver Jubilee celebrations in 1990, and then spearheaded its Ruby celebration, that is 40th year celebrations in 2005, and we organized a conference too. And then at that time, in fact, itself the concept of a strong alumni association was seeded. However, it did not get around to actually form an association in 2005. So in 2014, when we were getting ready to celebrate the golden jubilee of the Department of Library Information Science in a grand manner, I suggested and spearheaded the formation of Milan. Well, as you can see, the name Milan, even though it stands for Mysore University Information and Library Science Alumni Association, network, sorry. The Milan evokes the idea of Milan. That is, all of us have to come together as alumni of this university, this department, to celebrate and to acknowledge our debt to the university, our alma mater. So that is the main prime mover, I would say, for me to form this Milan in 2014, and that's how we also started celebrating, preparing for a year-long celebration of the Golden Jubilee of the department, which we did with international conference in 2015. And this year happens to be the decennial year of Milan, because Milan was founded in 2014. So we are now getting ready to celebrate the Diamond Jubilee of the department next. So that is the context in which this conference is being organized. And now coming to the theme of the conference. Well, it's already been said about AI and academic publishing, etc. What comes to my mind is that we are living in exciting times. And what comes to my mind is the famous, or infamous, you can say, the Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times. It's apocryphal, but then supposed to be, the translation of the Chinese translation. Actually, there was no source which actually says that in Chinese there was this curse. And supposedly a blessing about may you live in interesting times. But it says that this is an oxymoron because it's also a curse as well as a blessing. Because we are supposed to be living in interesting. What does that mean? I would say today we are living in interesting times. Because of AI, because of so many other developments that have taken place. And another quote or another saying that comes to my mind when we think about these exciting times that we are in, or we can even say difficult times that we are in, is the opening statement of Charles Dickens in his book, Tale of Two Cities. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times. So that's what it is. It is the best of times when you think of AI, and it is also the, in a sense, worst of times. Because we don't know. As the famous scientist Stephen Hawking said before his death in 2017, before AI, AI was there, but it did not become such a household name, that we do not know where this AI is going to be. It might be the best thing that has happened to our civilization, or it might be the worst thing that has happened to our civilization. We don't know. We might be sidelined by it. That's what Stephen Hawking said in 2017. And cultural historian Yuval Harari in his book in 2023 says that AI is the operating system of our civilization. So that is what AI is. That is why it is an interesting. Why it is interesting, or why it is, are we living in interesting time? It's not just the AI, just to come in to think of it. The third decade of the 21st century, we started 2020 with the pandemic. We slowly recovered by 2022, and Putin decided that he has to invade Ukraine and cause all problem, which continues, the war continues. And then in 2023 October, Hamas attacked Israel. And then, we know the horrific war that is going on. Is this interesting time? It's a curse in one sense, right? As the so-called Chinese curse. It's interesting as in it's a curse. But being an optimist, I look at the best side of everything. I think it is interesting because it's in us, at the end of the day. It's in us, people, lay people, scientists, or whoever, all stakeholders in this society, to steer towards a better science or a better world, right? So today's conference, hopefully, will add some way to this discussion about AI, academic publishing, and libraries. Talking about the theme of academic publishing, libraries, and AI, the common thread in these three concepts that we have used in the theme of the conferences, the science, or more specifically, the Republic of Science. The Republic of Science, I would like to quote the great sociologist of science, Robert Martin, and his four principles. Pillars: communalism rather, universalism, and disinterestedness, and then skepticism, organized skepticism, that is Trudeau's. And that defined the so-called, I would say, the Miltonian paradigm of science. And that paradigm of science continues today under the long shadow of olden. That brings us to the world of academic publishing. Academic publishing or scholarly communication in one sense, had its major, I would say, milestone with the publication of Philosophical Transactions of Right Society in 1665, started by Olden. That's why, I'm actually paraphrasing Jean-Claude Viren's famous book called The Long Shadow of Oldenburg, which was published in 2001, in the context of open access movement. Because as at least many of us here know, that Jean-Claude Viren is I would say, an open access evangelist and an advocate of open access movement. So he wrote this book in the long shadow of Oldenburg. And in one sense, I would say, with all these technological developments since 2001 also, we still continue to live in the long shadow of Oldenburg, because the German medium, or you can say scholarly communication within the scholarly system as well as within the academia, are in the Republic of Science. Scientific journal still rule the roost. They still publish this. So in the Republic of Science, what changes can we expect with the advent of all these new technologies? Because technology always are the prime drivers of any change, whether in science or even in system. And over the years, whether you start with Gutenberg revolution or now the generative AI revolution, it's always driven by technologies, particularly these days, digital technologies. So that's how open access movement in one sense was also spurred by the digital technologies that became available, particularly in the 1990s. As you all know, it started with the archive.org by Paul Winsper. And that is one example. Why I'm saying it's not only the oldest which started the movement, but it continues to be, and as he himself has said in one talk, the price of success. Because it's actually taking up so much time. He said what once was a 4-hour tour has become a life sentence. That is how time consuming it was for him to sustain that. Of course, now it's a successful model, having crossed 2 million mark in 2021, and now it has more than 2.4 million, with about 16,000 deposits every year. Why I'm citing this is not only, as I said earlier, but that is one model which says that perhaps open access movement has not taken, I would like to use my own phrase, I think it's not taken a wrong turn, because it was continued. But however, what happened later was not just the green route, but also the gold route, which introduced the article APC. Right? The APC model, which was introduced primarily, and also, I would say primarily introduced as well as spearheaded by the PLOS, well, has actually engendered this gold route and made it stronger since the last 10-15 years. But today we are at a juncture where this model is being questioned. How do I say it is being questioned, or perhaps it may not survive? Is because at least 2 or 3 major funding agencies which were actually supporting the gold model, such as the Plan-S as well as the Gates Foundation, they have said clearly, they have announced that they are no longer going to fund the APC, article processing charges. For me, as a person, as an open access enthusiast, I would say that's a very good move, very good thing that has happened, because I always said that gold model is not the right model, primarily because in one sense, I would say, it disencourages non-funded research, because we don't have a fund. We don't have a funding agency. How are you going to fund your publication? So that in my view at least, it had actually taken a wrong turn. That's what I would say as wrong turn. Now, talking about whether it's a wrong turn or a right turn, my view has been thus. I recently interviewed for my podcast, InfoFire, Jean-Claude Viren, and I asked him a question. If you were to look back in the rearview mirror, what you would have not done, what regrets do you have about your championing the open access? What he said is that, Sharmi, I was there at this crucial meeting of PLOS. I should have desisted. I should have said that no for APC. I did not. That's why I have. So that's what is happening in academic publishing. It's going through a lot of turns and turns. We don't know where, in fact, that was the topic of my conversation with Jean-Claude. Whether open access, because we don't know where it is heading. But as an enthusiast of open access and as a positive thinking person, I feel that we are going to go through these chunks and then probably headed towards a right direction, I would say. According to me, as well as endorsed by Jean-Claude, the diamond model is perhaps the best course or the direction that we could take. That's about open access publishing, that's academic publishing. As far as libraries are concerned, well, most of the audience here is from library fraternity. All of you know that libraries actually played a central role in popularizing as well as strengthening the open access movement through their institutional depositories. So today, at this juncture of AI and academic publishing, libraries have a crucial role to play in taking or strengthening, I would say, and taking the right direction in the open access or academic publishing world. So if you look at the intersection of academic publishing and AI, the critical question that comes to our mind is, are we taking the right approach or the wrong approach? Because with AI, as I said, everyone is concerned. Is it hacking our civilization? Is it hacking our academic publishing world? There is a positive side to it because we all know, because research has shown in research in the sense of research in the impact of AI in research has shown that it has actually helped the research process in many different ways, from research close to everything, including, for example, literature review, automated literature review. So the idea being that it actually eases the burden of a researcher from other, say, including issues such as formatting and others on non-substantive, I use the not related exactly to the primary scientific research. So it eases the burden and thereby probably it improves the efficiency and effectiveness of our academic publishing. But what is the flip side? The negative side. The worry is that just like in other areas, the scientific misinformation and disinformation is also spreading. And with ChatGPT, it's also possible that with synthetic data and synthetic information, scientific information could jeopardize our future. So that is the flip side. I'm not going to actually here catalog all the negative sides of open access movement or even AI in academic publishing. Just mention only one of the major I would say, side effects of all this thing that is happening today is the retraction of papers. Just recently, the retraction was said that last year, that is 2023, really we have seen 10,000 articles being retracted. That is the data. And it is one of the highest. And what is alarming is not just the 10,000 papers being retracted. This is Nature analysis. Articles from prestigious Nature also are being retracted. But what is more alarming is that some of the papers which are now retracted are also one of the highly cited papers. The top rank of retracted papers with highest citation goes to an article published in Science in 2002, but retracted in 2024, which was cited 4,000 times. So with academic publishing, that is the question before us. And that's the reason why we thought we should put together a conference on academic publishing, AI, and of course, what role libraries can play. As I said, I'm an optimist. So just like another author, Nick Wallstrom, who wrote a book on superintelligence, actually envisaging what could go wrong with AI, has recently written another book, Deep Utopia, where he imagines a world where everything is right. That is, we can govern AI, and thereby we are going to have deep utopia as far as the world is concerned. So paraphrasing that, I would say perhaps we might see deep utopia in academic publishing or in the Republic of Science. And all we have to do is do our bit to maintain the integrity, sanctity, and scholarship of the Republic of Science doing our own way. That is the whole idea behind this conference theme, and when we envisaged 6 months back. So, I would say the conference has been in terms of papers and program, etc. My team, led by Meera and Chandrasekhar and everyone else, they have put together a nice program. We have started well, as the cliche goes. Well started is well done, right? So we have done well so far. We are going to listen to the experts on these matters. And we have, as I think someone else mentioned, we received more than 60 papers, and out of which 28 papers were selected and submitted to this conference. So in these 2 days, we are going to have, apart from the inaugural and the valedictory, 7 technical sessions. And we have keynote speakers. Each session has a keynote speaker on the particular sub-theme of the conference, followed by submitted papers. And we also have 2 panel discussions. Hopefully, the discussions in this conference, as well as some of the insights and thought-provoking, I would say, triggers that are generated here in this conference, will help us add our mark, our little 2 cents to this deep utopia of the Republic of Science that at least some of us are envisaging here. With this, I would say, hopefully it was brief. It was not probably brief introduction to the theme of the conference and the context in which the theme was envisaged. I would like to extend a warm welcome to each one of you, and I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of our speakers, dignitaries here in the class. We are really fortunate to have Dr. Balaram with us to give the inaugural address and inaugurate the conference, because he combines all of the things that we talked about so far. So we have with us Dr. Balaram, we have with us Professor Srinath Srinivasa from IIIT, who is an expert in the area of AI and related areas, who is going to talk about the AI aspect. Okay? And we also have our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Lokanath, who is a scientist by himself. So they are going to enrich your, I would say, memories of this conference with their insights and their outlook on the future of academic publishing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. In essence, I can say we are living at times of paradoxes, and this 2-day conference will be a good starting point to explore the interplay between academic publishing, libraries, and artificial intelligence. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the moment you've all been waiting for, the inaugural address of this national conference. I humbly invite distinguished scientist, Padma Bhushan Professor P. Balaram for the inaugural address.
Good morning to all of you. I'd like to thank the organizers, the Vice Chancellor, all the members of the department for inviting me to this conference. Usually, inaugurals are given by senior people who don't know very much about the subject that we're talking about. And it turns out that I also don't know very much about the subject that I'm going to talk about, because I realized after releasing this book that although the title of your conference is Academic Publishing, Libraries and Artificial Intelligence, I suspect by looking through most of the articles, it is about the impact of artificial intelligence on libraries and academic publishing. Now, I don't know anything about about artificial intelligence. Professor Srinivasa will tell you all about it. I'm in fact going to take the three words in your title and talk about them independently. I'm going to say something about libraries, a little bit about academic publishing, and very little about artificial intelligence, which is a subject that I view with some discomfort at the moment. I begin with two cartoons which are there, and those of you who are librarians will realize that libraries are on the verge of extinction. And the cartoon on the left is particularly nice because when a librarian takes a child to show her a library, what she says is that it is the way it's an old version of the World Wide Web where all the information was actually stored. That's the kind of library that I worked in throughout my career, and that's the J.R.D. Tata Library at the Indian Institute of Science. And for most of us, it was in fact the temple on the campus. And you went into the library, it was a very, very special place. But the other cartoon, of course, tells you the way sometimes that even the J.R.D. Tata Library at IISc might have deteriorated. It eventually becomes the place where any visitor goes to find a restroom. And sometimes it is difficult, as this American cartoon says, that maybe when someone comes out after feeling comfortable, maybe they could be persuaded to read a book. The best quote I've ever seen on libraries, I saw in an editorial in Hindu a long time ago, reproduced from an even earlier report in the Hindu in 1951, where R.K. Narayan, who really is one of Mysore's more famous inhabitants, said that the faint aroma of gum and calico that hangs about a library is as a fragrance of incense to me. I think the most beautiful sight is the gilt-edged backs of raw books on a shelf. I don't think there are very many people who will share Narayan's sentiment today. And fortunately, he is not here to see what the modern age has done to libraries. Academic publishing. I'll spend a little bit more time on academic publishing. Academic publishing today is mostly predatory. And as these cartoons suggest, there are two kinds of predators around. One are the predators who are trying to make money out of academic publishing, and the other is a somewhat more disturbing predatory practice where science is getting corrupted, as Dr. Shalini has said, by fake papers, scientific misconduct, and sometimes issues of dubious authorship. I rather like the cartoon on the right, because sometimes you will find that even in laboratories in India, in big institutions, sometimes it will turn out that the head of the institution has his name on every paper that comes out from the institution. This is a pernicious practice, but that, of course, is a mafia family wanting its entire name on the paper. And when if the author refuses to give it, they then just push him off the pier and drown him. Thinking about this conference, I received this email a couple of days ago. So you can see it's fresh from the oven. It's the 19th of June, 2 days ago. I get this paper from a rather prominent publisher now, MDPI, who is, in fact, this publisher is about as predatory as you can possibly get. And I keep getting these mails, but this one was interesting. It's a reminder for an issue that I was invited to, a special issue of a journal, in honor of a distinguished Brazilian scientist who's reached the age of 85. So normally in the old days, when you asked to write an article for someone who's reached a milestone in his life, you automatically wrote the article. But in this case, of course, it would say you must write the article and all of that, and we hope you will do it. But then it will give you a place where you can click. And when you can click, you will find it is an open access journal. And what does an open access journal mean? It means that authors pay in order to publish. How much do they pay in this journal? They pay 2,700 Swiss francs. And I took yesterday's Swiss franc conversion date and converted, that is 2.54 lakhs of rupees. Now, would you want to pay 2.54 lakhs of rupees to publish a paper? The answer is no. But you can ask, in India, how many people pay to publish papers? The number is frighteningly large. And if you count the amount of money that flows out of India just for papers to be published in journals, for nobody's good except the good of the author to add to a CV, it turns out that the amount of money going out is phenomenal. Do we get anything in return? The answer is no. And this is what I mean by a completely predatory and corrupt practice. Now, I'll introduce you to a blog. All the interesting things in the information age and the age of the World Wide Web are probably in blogs. But then you have to be very discerning about blogs. You have to read blogs which are written by people who are serious. This is a blog called The Scholarly Kitchen, which talks about attractions and publications at MDPI, which is the publisher. It turns out that two publishers, Frontiers and MDPI, together published at one point in a year 500,000 papers. And these 500,000 papers translate into an income of exactly $1 billion. Remember that $1 million would give you about 8 crores, 8.5 crores of rupees. And $1 billion is $1,000 million. So this is a wonderful kind of business in which to be. Now, of course, in this general scheme of things of academic publishing, etc., there's also another organization called the Web of Science, which has done its share to corrupt the scientific community. Eugene Garfield, whose work I admired greatly when I was young, he unfortunately passed away before he really saw how badly his work is being misused in recent times. He introduced the journal impact factor, and nothing other than the journal impact factor really matters today in journals. The Web of Science now acts as a gatekeeper for journals, and the Web of Science delisted the major journal from MDPI. And the moment it delisted the major journal, you can see how the impact factor of the journal actually collapsed. Because what this meant was that authors don't look at what is published in the journal. They look at what is the impact factor of the journal before they submit a journal. So here you can see that the academic community must be among the most foolish communities in the world. They spend their money to publish in places which are absolutely worthless, because if the Web of Science delists a journal, tomorrow the journal in which you're published has completely disappeared from the scientific landscape. The analyst who writes this blog is an ex-employee of Clarivate, which runs the Web of Science now. And therefore, he does a fairly scholarly, detailed, quantitative analysis of what goes on. I'm now speaking in the Department of Library and Information Science. When I was young, there was no information science. The age of information technology was still to come. And libraries were places where you went to read. All of a sudden, I found as I grew older, librarians have transformed themselves into information scientists. And then one wondered, what is information science? If you read these kinds of analysis, you will in fact find out what is information science and how does one follow Garfield in analyzing the scientific literature. I won't say much about artificial intelligence because I don't know very much about it. And you can see these cartoons tell it all. I rather like the cartoon on the other side. You know, they're trying to get a monkey to sit in front of a computer and then tell us all about evolution by looking at the vast volume of information on the internet. Of course, the monkey now has produced 68 recipes for using bananas. And that, for some of you are students, I want to show you information science at its very beginning. This is a paper published in 1927 We will soon celebrate its centenary, and maybe some library science group in India will in fact celebrate the 100th anniversary of this paper. This paper, a group of librarians, two of them, in a small college, are trying to ask the question, with a limited budget, which are the best chemistry journals to buy? And chemistry was a subject which was quite important in the 1920s. And they say, how do we assess journals? So what do? They make a little table. They take the most important chemistry journal that they can think of in their surroundings, which is the Journal of the American Chemical Society. They are living in America. And then they ask, if you look at articles in the Journal of the American Chemical Society, what journals do they cite? And sure enough, you see what chemistry looked like in 1927. Right up on top is Berichte, the German journal. Somewhere hidden down below where I've put red arrows are the journals that we all worry about today. Nature, Science, Proceedings of the US National Academy. The United States was not that far advanced in 1927. And you get, this is the beginning really of scientometrics. This is the beginning of trying to assess the impact of journals. I won't tell you how this happened, except to tell you, look at Garfield's paper of 1955, where he begins to talk about the citation index for science. Idea comes from law and the Shepherd's index. And Garfield was producing current contents at that time. And in the early 70s, late 70s, when I was working at the IISc, the only source of information that we had was current contents. Every week one would go to the library to see what Garfield's current contents had produced. But at the beginning, there was an essay written by Garfield. And it was that essay written by Garfield which converted me to becoming a fan of what was then the emerging field of scientometrics. And you could see that what he wanted this bibliographic tool to do, he wanted to use scientometrics to understand what one would call the sociology of science. How does science develop? How are ideas interlinked to one another? How wonderful. What can you do with it today? Is there any, I'm a scientist, and if I ask you, many of you are not, and if I ask you, is there anything in science that you sort of like or know? There's one thing that you won't like, but you know all about it, that's the coronavirus. So you might ask, we've just come out of the pandemic. 2020 to 2023 are the pandemic years. And you can ask, what happened to science publishing in the pandemic years? So this is the question that I asked a friend of mine, who many of you might know, who is in fact a library and information scientist, Madan Muthu, who is at the OP Jindal University now. I asked him, can you get for me all the articles? He has access to the Web of Science. I'm retired and I sit at home. I don't have access to anything. But Madan was very kind. He used the Web of Science and all the tools that he has to pick out all the papers which have coronavirus, either in their title, in their abstract, or somewhere in the text. Now, the Science Citation Index in this period lists 10 million papers. So you can see the volume of information that you have. This is why we all believe that artificial intelligence would solve all our problems, because we can't wrap our brain around 10 million papers. It takes a long time to read one paper, so there's no chance of reading 100 papers in any reasonable length of time. And this is just some details. There's a new tool which allows you to get what are called micro-citation topics. And coronavirus led the list with 117,000 papers there in 4,500 odd journals with that many citations. It's sort of interesting to see what are the other fields of science. There's supercapacitor, and believe it or not, there's deep learning. And then below that, there's an abbreviation, PD1. Now, I don't know what PD1 is, but when I see an abbreviation which I can't understand, I know it's from the field of biology. And sure enough, it's an abbreviation for a cancer protein. And therefore, everybody's working on it. Photocatalysis, 37,000 papers. Why is photocatalysis important? Why is everyone interested in it? Because they want to split water. Why did they want to split water into hydrogen and oxygen to get hydrogen? The government, after all, announces the green hydrogen mission for 20,000 crores. Nature does this all the time in plants, but it hides the hydrogen. That's the problem. So you know why that's important. So we looked at all the coronavirus papers, and Madan arranged everything into nice tables for me to see. And the journals publishing more than 1,000 papers, which had been cited more than 100 times in this very short period. So every scientist in biology, in medicine, in physics, in chemistry had turned to coronavirus research in this period. So you could see the amount of noise in the literature is very much more than the signal. Here are the journals which publish them. Most of them, Frontiers in MDPI and PLOS, which Dr. Shalini has mentioned, all of them appear, all open access journals. The yellow one, of course, is the journal which the Web of Science delisted. This is the status of the coronavirus literature. These are journals which, impact factors of 14 journals, which published at least 100 of the most highly cited papers. Look at those impact factors there. Those impact factors in the period between 2019, 2021 are going up phenomenally. You now have impact factors which look like the kind of scores that you're now seeing the T20 matches which are currently being played, 150, 140. These are impact factors. They're sort of meaningless numbers now. And impact factors, of course, have become the greatest source of what I would call intellectual corruption in academia. And that cartoon is rather nice. You now have poor scientists sitting and begging other people to cite their papers, and new scams appearing where editors, authors, publishers, all together in cahoots, push up the impact factor of their journals. So you now are in a field which is, in fact, in a state of real disrepair. I want to show you something that I found from my analysis of the long COVID of the COVID literature. It turns out that journals like Lancet, New England Journal of Medicine, and the Journal of the American Medical Association, the impact factor shot up like everything. They went almost up to 200 in the case of Lancet, and they're all going to come down now because the coronavirus madness has ended. And now, of course, the impact factor of Lancet, when you get it in 2023 and 2024, is going to go even further down. And I'm sure the corporation, which looks at the finances of the Lancet group of journals, will now fire the Lancet editor because under his editorship, the impact factor is now falling. But this is what I would call the long COVID syndrome, which afflicts the biomedical journals. And this is going to happen for a while. There's an exception here, the British Medical Journal. And you can ask, why did this impact factor go up? Madan investigated this and found that it went up because of a paper which was published here, and the paper had no relevance to anything. It was a paper which told people how they should report data. Now, I was invited during the pandemic to an online discussion, which was entitled Make Knowledge Free, Not Private Property. This was, of course, the usual activist kind of gathering online, which happens. And the question was, can or should science journals be freely accessed? My answer to that is yes, in principle, they should be accessed. But in practice, this is not really possible, because it does cost money to bring out the journal. And there's really no such thing as a free lunch. And one has to ask really, what is the cost of your lunch? That we know how to do. We still haven't decided how to decide how do you fix journal prices. Many of you will know that in the field of pharmaceuticals and medical devices, the government has intervened. The prices of stents are capped. The prices of some of the most widely used and important drugs are also capped. You cannot make an indecent profit out of the business. When does a profit become indecent? That is what one has to discuss. Right now, it turns out that the profits made by academic publishers are not only indecent, they are practically obscene. Now, there has been a case, many of you are students, I don't know how many of you are students who use Sci-Hub, how many of you are students who use LibGen, but I can tell you openly, I am a frequent user of Sci-Hub because if I'm sitting at home and I don't have access, I first check to see whether Sci-Hub has what I want to read. I want to read it. And there's been a court case. 3 publishers have filed, the Wiley, Springer, and Wiley and Elsevier, I think, and Springer sitting on the fence, and the American Chemical Society. The American Chemical Society, which is an academic society which should know better, is today as predatory as any of the predatory publishers. That case has been going on from 2020, and current papers are no longer accessible, and students will know this on Sci-Hub. It's only papers which were there before 2020, which you can easily get from Sci-Hub. It's a pirate site. Every one of you is using pirate sites for so many other things. And the internet is full of this. So the Delhi High Court is set to hear this case in August 2024. The time has come now to create a public movement to actually fight this case such that publishers do not get away using archaic foreign copyright laws. My own take on this is we need to inspect with a fine-tooth comb copyright laws and rewrite them in the modern context. It is as important to have a good copyright law as it is to have or not have a sedition law. You have to understand the crisis in academic publishing because it's in your title. And history helps in understanding the present. Science publishing today, and I gave a talk on this some time ago to the LIS thing. I titled them as Greed, Vanity, and the Decline of Scholarship. The greed is from the side of the publishers. Vanity is from the side of the academicians and the scientists. The decline is because of the metrics-obsessed ecosystem. Who introduced this metric-obsessed ecosystem? All of us together. And therefore, collectively, conferences must address how to get rid of this metrics-obsessed ecosystem. So today's hybrid journals are nothing short of a publishing scam, and one must look at this. I've told you what is in my mind on academic publishing, on libraries, and not really what is in my mind on artificial intelligence, but that is for another day. I might just end by saying that artificial intelligence first inroads into science were actually in the field which I was studying then as a graduate student, chemistry. The first 2 artificial intelligence programs actually came. The first one in the interpretation of mass spectra of spheroids, a program called Dendral, came in the early 1970s. A Stanford group, Carl Gerassi and a professor of computer science then, Ed Feigenbaum, wrote this. These followed the famous programs for playing chess, which had been written in the early days by Herbert Simon and others. The second artificial intelligence program was to how to put organic molecules together using the literature of organic synthesis to decide whether you could teach a computer chemistry just as you taught a computer chess. Today, of course, the ways of teaching are different. Great advances have been made in computer science. But I think excessive obsession with ChatGPT, for instance, is only likely to take you in the wrong direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. It was indeed interesting as it was learning to all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, that was academic publishing, libraries, and artificial intelligence through the lens of a scientist. And now it's time to invite Professor Srinath Srinivasa, Dean Research and Development, IIIT Bengaluru, for the keynote address, as Dr. Meera has already indicated. He will be delivering his keynote address on AI and the game of science. Sir, we welcome.
Namaskaram and good morning. After the scintillating talk by Professor Balram, I really do not have much to add, but I could not agree more with what he presented in his observations and the conclusions. In fact, this is as the Dean for Research and Development, this is my daily headache actually. So on the one hand, we have to improve our institution's NIRF scores and in other scores, our impact factors should increase. But every increase in impact factor means that I have to raise that much more funding for article processing charges. And so while the funding agencies do not, they often ask me, don't you get paid for publishing? Why should you pay for publishing? So this is the, this is the world that we see ourselves in, and which has actually prompted some of us to even go back to fundamentals. So why exactly are we publishing at all? Why exactly, what is this game of science really? And why is scientific communication important? And given that I also work in AI as part of my mainstream research, I thought I'll put these two together and try and make some points from this. So about myself, so this is, I head a lab called the Web Science Lab, not to be confused with Web of Science. Web Science is basically it was a term coined by Tim Berners-Lee, who is credited with inventing the key technologies of the World Wide Web. So it is the study of how digital technologies like the internet and the World Wide Web, how is it affecting humanity? So we intersect with library science in many ways, as Professor Balram rightly mentioned. This is library. The early part of library was of the web was the library itself. Most search engines today heavily borrow from library science in the way they index documents, in the way they retrieve, rank, and even things like page rank and other kinds of ranking metrics. And we do actually study quite a bit of library science. We also study quite a bit of psychology and social science, because there's a lot of social media involved in this. And, so this is quickly my lab a couple of months ago, which is okay. So just to start off on what I wanted to talk about, I also resort to the use of cartoons to make my point. So this is a cartoon going around on the internet these days. The difference between a 19th century scientist and a 21st century scientist. The 19th century scientist wanted to understand nature, while the 21st century scientist wants to publish in nature. And so that's the game of science today. Of course, science itself has a purpose, right? So we want to understand nature, we want to solve our problems, we want to empower our society, and that's primarily why we think we pursue science. But today, the way we pursue science is more of like this. There's a turf war, there's a prestige, there's all kinds of other things that are involved. And sometimes we start asking, is it really promoting the original objectives of why science is being pursued in the first place? So before going to AI itself, I thought I'll just do a quick recap of how scientific communication itself has evolved over the years. And we see that, yeah, of course, there are scientists who are concerned about this issue, and they are trying different ways in which, to try to see, how is the original objectives of science, how can they be met? So the current day, what we see, the predominant way of scientific communication today has its roots, again, Professor Balram also mentioned, it's sometime in the 19th century. This picture here is a painting of what's called the Great Exhibition of the Works of Industry of All Nations. This was held in Hyde Park in London in 1851. So there was this increasing understanding or need that scientific communication has to be disseminated. Until then, for the most part, scientific communication was mostly relegated within small echo chambers among the elite, and they kind of talk to themselves, and the rest of the public didn't know, and we couldn't really reap the benefits of scientific inquiry if we do not communicate scientific results. So that was the kind of work, that's how it started. And for scientific communication to be valuable, we need to have some notion as to how do you establish the credibility of any scientific inquiry. And so this is now called the information deficit model, where basically which argues that there's a widespread distrust about science among the public because they do not have the right knowledge and do not have the right information. So it is the duty of scientists to actually talk about this science beyond their own community, and not just to the public, maybe to other scientists as well in different communities. So it's not just a question of prestige, but it's actually a duty that we should kind of communicate, and that's how scientific impact can increase. And this kind of led us to asking questions like, how do we establish the credibility? Who's a good scientist? Who can promote this? And that's where we have a lot of psychometrics coming around, Eugene Garfield, the impact factors, the citation metrics, and today, whether we like it or not, most of us have a scoreboard like this, and which determines our futures in Google Scholar or wherever, and which kind of deals with how whether we get promoted or whether we get to keep our jobs or but of course. There is a psychological element to metrics, and in fact, the moment we have metrics, it has its own, it creates its own universe. So this cartoon is by my colleague, Professor Sujit Kumar Chakraborty, also from IISc, ex-IISc. So he's talking about. So there is a speaker who has come and he's giving a talk, and he's admiring the speaker, saying, "What an erudite scholar." And then let me look him up, and on Google Scholar, he sees that this guy has even lesser citations than him, and then he says, "What an idiot," and stops listening. And, the thing with metrics is that the moment a number comes in, everything else goes out of the window, and the number gets a life of its own. I often conduct this experiment, with my students and other youngsters. I ask them, "Do you remember the marks that you got in your in mathematics in SSLC?" Right? Most of them still remember. "Oh, I got 96. I got 100." Okay. Then I pick up a random subject from 10th standard maths, Apollonius theorem. Do you remember Apollonius theorem? They don't remember, right? And they would have forgotten right after the exam. And and that's the point, right? And the thing is, you're supposed to remember the subject and forget the marks, but we remember the marks and forget the subject and forget the content. Even simple things, what are our fundamental rights, fundamental duties? We studied them, right? In 10th standard, we even wrote and got good marks, but how many of us still remember any of them, right? And so the moment quantities come into a picture, the high dimensionality of the learning process, it's almost like in quantum mechanics we have this thing called the moment you instrument a quantum system, then the entire dimensionality collapses to just one element. So that's what happens. The number becomes the entity itself. The metric becomes the entity. It's not something new. I mean, a lot of scholars have criticized metrics. Of course, there's the well-known Goodhart's law. So Goodhart's law basically says that when a metric becomes a target, then it ceases to be a good metric. It's no longer a good metric anymore. And Campbell's law and so on. And there have also been, for example, maybe you've heard of the Sokal affair and the Saigon. Cygen is at least, I think, about 20 years old. But this is a case of one of the first cases of the use of AI in to spoof scientific papers. So some people, some researchers in MIT created an automatic CS paper generator, computer science paper generator, and you can give it the keywords and it will generate a paper for you. And apparently they submitted the paper to one of a well-known conference called Systems, Cybernetics and Information, and got accepted also in this conference. And so a completely automatically generated paper. And there have been lots of such cases like this. And this was, by the way, before current day AI, the current day large language models. And so it was much, today's large language models can generate much more convincing sentences. Those sentences were much more prudent. So this has been, this is the psychology of, I mean, this is the pathology of a purely metrics-driven scientific endeavor. Of course, there are people who are saying that, okay, we need to go beyond this, and can we even look into how scientific communication itself can change, and what else can we do? So there are other approaches that are coming about. The contextual model approach, for example, says that, see, the thing is, scientific communication it doesn't make sense unless it is narrated in the context of the listener. So we often get this get this debates, especially in our data science conferences and so on. Is there an Indian context to database research? Is there an Indian context to most of the work that we do, right? And there is a puritanical approach which says that, well, science is science. Newton's laws are Newton's laws. It's applicable everywhere. There's no Indian Newton law, and there's no American Newton law, Newton's law, and so on. But then the way Newton's laws are applicable to solve problems, the way it becomes useful is very context specific, right? And so this gave rise to some new ideas called re-narration, for example. That if scientific communication has to be useful, it has to be re-narrated in the context of the recipient. And re-narration is not just for the general public. Even for us, for example, let's say new law comes in, let's say DPDP, Digital Private Data Protection, Personal Data Protection. If I read through it, I really can't understand much. Somebody has to rewrite it to me in plain English, because most of us cannot understand legal language. So a re-narration web. So there are some amount of work going around saying, how do we create a re-narration web? That is, you take the same thing, re-narrate it into different audiences, and they can, so that they can actually make use of it. This is, by the way, an exercise. So we are working with an organization called Genestu. And this is an exercise we did with some villagers near Devrayandurga, near Tumkur, on a re-narration exercise just before COVID. This was the exercise that we were participating in. Similarly, there are a few other models that have come in. The lay expertise model basically says that, knowledge is not the prerogative of just scientists. There has been knowledge traditionally as well, and in more traditional methods, and many of it is also credited, that there is an expertise in conventional wisdom. So we should not only just re-narrate it, we should actually involve different stakeholders as part of our problem-solving process. So this is called the lay expertise model here, that it proposes a dialectic approach rather than a singular approach of re-narration. And says that we have to work together with, we have to identify different stakeholders and work together. And so one of the key concepts that has come out from this is the idea of living labs. So living labs is kind of pioneered in Europe quite a bit. I remember one of the first introduction to living labs. I think Sweden was the first country to promote this concept, where to show what a living lab is, they showed this example. They were working with health officials in the city of Stockholm, I think, who are worried about public health. How do you get people to exercise more, or use the stairs more than the elevators and so on. So what they did was they worked with the university, where they created some kind of sensor-based system, Arduino-based sensors, and painted the stairs as if it looked like a piano keys, a set of piano keys. And anytime somebody stepped on the stairs, it gave a musical sound. So suddenly this became a kind of a toy for people. So people not only started using the stairs, they started dancing on the stairs as well. They started going up and down and so on. Right? And so the idea there was, see, such an idea could not have come if you had just been in your lab. Only when you come out into the society you can get such ideas, and you can come out with completely new ideas of how science can be made beneficial. So this is the idea of living labs, and finally there's also the public engagement model, which basically says that the public has to be engaged in most scientific activities right from the beginning and so on. So there's this. This is one more event which we conducted in IEEE. This was just before the COVID lockdown in March 2020. This was called Brave Conversations. So this was an event open to the public, but they had to register. And we were trying to debate about what is the web doing to us. That is, how can we imagine a digital future? And so the moderator came from Australia. She is Annie Roland Campbell. She had curated the discussions into very vexing questions, which involved virtual reality, which involved social media, which involved all kinds of things, and the way they are affecting us, and elicited responses from the public to say, okay, how this can happen. So these are different ways in which scientific communication is being reimagined. But now enter AI into the system, and how does AI affect all of these, and what does it do? So even as I was preparing for this talk, this report came out from the Royal Society in UK, Science in the Age of AI, which I would highly recommend reading this. Which is quite comprehensive, has inputs from more than 100 different scientists. And looks at many different ways in which AI is affecting science. And there are also some guidelines. DFG is coming out with guidelines on when is it acceptable to use ChatGPT in academic publishing. Right? So with AI, of course, let us first do away with all the pathologies. Right? There is a lot of concern with the use of AI, and which are all valid, and it is these are all very interesting, paradoxical, scary times as well, because there are a lot of bad things you could do, with AI. Okay, of course, the biggest pathology of using AI is hallucinations. LLMs, that is the current version of AI based on ChatGPT, so large language models, hallucinate very easily. Okay, so this is a question I gave to ChatGPT. Saying, prove that it's always possible to build a 3 regular graph with 7 nodes. And so for those of us who are familiar with graph theory, we know that such a graph is not possible. 3 regular graph means every node has 3 edges, but there are 7 nodes. So, but total number of edges should always be even, so this is not possible. And, but it has clearly given some kind of a quote-unquote proof, and also cited a Harari graph theories. So one can easily imagine a student who bunked the graph theory class and then goes to the interview and somebody says, okay, prove that this is, and you can provide a proof like this, right? And which the proof doesn't make sense at all. And so LLMs cannot actually do symbolic reasoning or logical entailment. It just looks at, so the core model is what is called the language model. It's also colloquially called stochastic parroting. So it just basically looks at, given this sequence of words, what is the next most likely occurring word that appears? And if this sentence, this is the pattern in which, so there's no logical entailment that comes. And of course, there's lack of explainability. You can't explain why the AI is not able to explain why did it produce this. Okay. But I think more fundamentally, in addition to these hallucinations and so on, I think there is a more fundamental question that we need to address, and this is where we can find some answers. The question of outputs versus outcomes. Right? And, so most of the time we are interested in scientific outputs. Okay, when we should actually be looking at scientific outcomes. Right? So what is the difference between outputs and outcomes? Outputs is what we produce. Outcomes is what we become. right? So I keep giving this example. Let's say there is a factory, car manufacturing factory, produces 500 cars in a month. That's the output. But as a result of it, it could become the market leader, and that's the outcome. It has become a market, or it could become bankrupt, right? So just an output need not result in outcome, the desired outcome. So good output does not necessarily mean good outcomes, and really what AI can do is only affect the outputs, right? So we should be asking, can AI affect the outcomes as well, or how is AI affecting the outcomes in scientific inquiry? So having said that, so that was about the pathologies. And so let me kind of move back to a more optimistic note in that there are quite a few ways in which AI is getting instrumented in the scientific process, which are actually quite interesting, and it can actually help make our lives easier in this. Of course, one of the most widely used use of AI is what is called RAG, the Retrieval Augmented Generation based chat applications. So what that means is that you can customize your LLMs or the ChatGPT to answer questions about your corpus, right? So for example, typeset.io takes a PDF document. So I can, instead of reading a paper, I can upload this paper to typeset.io and ask questions about the paper. So this is one of our own papers. So it says validating the myth of average. And I asked what is the myth of average, and it gave a pretty accurate answer. Because it is actually extracting the answer from this document itself, and it is formatting the answer based on the earlier language model that it is. Similarly, there is this site called Quillbot, which was meant for re-narration. That is, so you could take a paper and re-narrate it in a different style for a different community, for a different kind of thing. But unfortunately, of course, this is quite widely used among the students for plagiarism. So if they ask them to write a paper, they'll take an existing paper, give it to Quillbot, and re-narrate it and write it in a different way. But yeah, this is still useful in a way. We can actually give it a legal document and ask it to re-narrate for in a more for a scientific audience. That's another. And stance modeling is another interesting thing that's coming up. So consensus.app is a very interesting site in this area. So what it does is it uses AI to understand the stance of a research paper about a given question. Right, so we can ask a question like, does exercise improve cognition? That's the question that's asked. And it has retrieved some 10 papers or so, and identified the stance. This paper says yes, this paper says no, this seems to be the overall consensus, and so on. And, so especially when we have to deal with millions of documents like this, and there are a lot of papers getting published, stance modeling is something which might be quite useful for practicing of science. Deep citation analysis is another interesting thing. Semantic Scholar is one of the sites that has pioneered this notion, which basically tries to understand why did one paper cite another paper. Right? Not every citation means an endorsement or something. You may be citing a paper to say that there's a flaw in that paper, or there's a to criticize the paper. And so on their website, they just have something called impactful citations versus non-impactful citation, but their actual research goes much more deeper and tries to label a citation, saying, okay, why did this paper cite that paper? What is the motivation? Again, uses AI techniques behind this. And yeah, Elysis.ai is another interesting site which does a multi-document summarization, somewhat like consensus.app, which does the stance modeling. But here, instead of just modeling the stance, it can even summarize it with the key points. So you could give a repository of papers on a given topic, and then say, okay, summarize the key points and create an abstract out of this, and so the key results and takeaways that you can actually generate from. Yeah, of course, many of these can also be used to plagiarize, or in some sense, generate papers that reduce the task of generating the papers, but they can also be used to reduce the effort in us trying to understand a lot of literature that's there. Yeah, and finally, this is something that we are ourselves working on, what we call assimilation patterns. So I talked about outputs and outcomes, right? So we want to understand how science is getting assimilated by the population rather than just what science they are producing, right? And so what we do is a simple exercise that we give a set of readings. So this is from one of my courses, and these are all the boxes that you find here are all the reading materials. And this is using AI, we have mapped it onto a 2D space. So based on topical similarity. So if two boxes are similar, close by, then it means they are very similar in terms of topics, right? And so we ask them to read some papers and then write in their own words what did they learn. So once they write in their own words, we again embed that into this space, and that gives us some kind of an assimilation. You know, how have they assimilated? And here we see that some of them have kind of assimilated very near to the actual resources. But you see a big number of these. So all the circles are the assimilation, what is generated by the students. And you see there's a lot of assimilation that are very far away from the resources that are here, right? And so what we basically are trying to argue is that if we give the same amount, same input to a class of students, what they take away from it can be very different. Because they're combining this knowledge with other knowledge in their heads, their own experience, and so on. And this is what really is the scientific impact. And this is what not just the output, but because that is what is going to determine how they're going to use this science in the future. So this is one more. I just thought I'd push in a little bit of our own work as well. Yeah, so that's kind of what I had to say. So like any technology, AI has both pros and cons. The very same things that I presented here can also be used for plagiarism, for other kinds of. Yeah, but over dependence on metrics might really be the reason why we're leading to pathologies. Once we kind of lessen our dependence on metrics, we can probably see very innovative ways of the use of AI inside. So that's what I guess.
Thank you, sir. I request all the dignitaries to come up with the dais. Well, that gave a lot of over. The deliberations will continue through sessions. Honorable Vice Chancellor of University of Mysore himself is an noted physicist and an avid researcher, and he has been gracious enough to even write a foreword for the conference volume that was released a while ago. I now request Honorable Vice Chancellor of University of Mysore, Professor Loknath N.K. for his presidential remarks. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Good afternoon to one and all. Former Director of Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, Padma Bhushan, Professor P. Balram, sir. Dean of International Institute of Information Technology, Bangalore, Professor Srinivas. Former Professor of our University, Professor Shalini R.S. Former Librarian of Rama Research Institute, Bengaluru, and the President of Mysore University Information and Railway Science Alumni Network, Dr. Meera, and Professor M. Chandrasekhar, Chairman, Department of Traditional Library and Information Science, and Organizing Secretaries Dr. Rajendra Babu, Dr. Nandisha, Dr. Sunil Kumar, and dignitaries of the dais, and all faculties and non-teaching staff, research students, and students, and person from the media. It gives me an immense pleasure to be here on this MILAN-APLAI 2024, organized by the Mysore University Information Library Information Alumni Network and Department of Studies in Library Information Science at the University of Mysore. And today as well as tomorrow. I am really delighted and witnessed the two luminaries. This Professor Balram sir has explained the importance of research and how it is going on today. Actually, in India, as I understood, as population increases, all output are increasing. So as I mentioned, Professor Srinivas, output and outcome. The problem is the outcome. So I am always questioning, there are two things cannot go together as in physics law, quality and quantity. We increase in quantity very much, but we are not worrying about the quality. So both cannot go together. So we need to put on something to on this quality. As we mentioned, AI-based technologies nowadays is very common to everyone. Everybody uses it. The problem with the new technologies, which one, where to, how to use at the proper time. That's the most important thing. So for example, I am telling, in 2019 or 20, whenever Corona comes, nobody knows about the online, nobody knows about the Zoom, nobody knows about the WebEx or any programs. So blessing in this case, when Corona comes, the most affected community, the teaching communities, they started utilizing, whether he is a science student or an arts faculty or a commerce faculty, everyone uses the technology. Thereby, everybody know how to teach on online. So teaching online means you're teaching to a wall. It's a new concept. Even then, it is successful. Now, and nowadays, most of the meetings are going through online, so that the time and everything is saved. And most of the time, people are using for many purposes. So similarly, all technologies will have its own pros and cons. But we have to use the pros of this technologies. Similarly, as I say, AI is used in every aspect of every today's life. Even you go to the market, you look at the new refrigerator, they mention in this refrigerator, AI-driven refrigerator. If I ask that gentleman to us, what is AI technology, he doesn't know anything. So it is an AI. So he says, this is how it has been popularized every day. And as we mentioned in this conference, this conference will definitely give you some light on this applications of AI, such a way that can be able to produce good quality papers. So I urge all the students, Professor Balram sir is here. He wrote current science editor page every probably around 10 years, I remember. Every time he writes, he will take a very new example and he narrated in a very beautiful manner, such that everyone can understand what is going on in the science every day. So I urge all the students should read his articles in current science, particularly in the region between 2007 to 2014, I remember. So you read that, all the information coming to this. Now the things have been changed. We need to publish more paper, as you mentioned. We need more output. Then people are using different methods. And also same way, as Professor Balram sir mentioned, there are a lot of predator journals out there. They are there, that business. So now, most of the time, everything is commercialized. So that's the problem where we lies in publishing. And also our UGC, even AACT, everybody asks about the number of papers, number of impact factors. Even if I get NRF rank or UGC, they do not worry about any other thing. How many paper you published, and what is H index, what is citations. So that's why every day we can see a lot of publications coming in. And also, as Dr. Srinath mentioned, the output is suddenly increasing. So similarly, if you look at the outcome, it is always less. But if you look into the other country journals, so there are also same thing. So even I'm mentioning there are some journals like MDPI or even the
our Royal Society journals, also the completed journal. That's the problem we realize. So therefore, I urge all the scientists, library students, you should has to have do something, a new phenomenon where we can control this type of publications. And also the problem with the publication is, so today the paper will come, the next day they will put the citations, the next day it will go to this, and then suddenly that paper will be retrieved back for some reasons. Even in science and nature journals also, there are a lot of papers, because I have been experienced on this. When I was working in Japan, a person who has solved the structure of polymerase, he published in Nature. After 3 months, the paper has been rejected because the method of way he conducted is completely different. So, sir, that means we are all expecting such a standard, high standard journals to have to look into it. The problem is we are not checking the quality. So therefore, I hope these 2 days will definitely will give you some idea on how to improve the publications through these AI technologies. And also I hope the students and the faculty members, they will have at least have some type of collaborations, a skill, as I just went through this Professor Srinivas lecture, he showed some websites. And you can use those such websites so that you can use it. So in my opinion, the days are changing, we need to change. Initially we said that human intelligence, then it is coming from the other intelligence called emotional intelligence. Now we are with the artificial intelligence. That means it is changing over the time. But you can use the technologies, you can improve better. So I have seen many students are using nowadays ChatGPT to write a letter. The letters are really good compared to their written by themselves. That's how it will help. But the student should have to realize whether whatever he writes is correct or wrong. That has the intelligence he needs. Even though artificial intelligence or ChatGPT gives everything. So same as Professor Srinath mentioned, so even sometimes ChatGPT gives correct answers, but sometimes it gives wrong answers too. So that means you need a human intelligence all the time, but you should use the technologies like AI. We should grow in every aspects of our every today's life. And also, everybody talking about the national education policy nowadays. People are talking about very much of critical thinking, innovations. Innovations will not come in our day or two, or any new research or new outcomes will not come a day or a month. So it takes several times. So every time, whether you go to NAC or NR, they are asking for, have you any innovated, have you invented something else? They put a question mark. How can a university or an institute can invent in 1 year or 6 months? Sometimes the question they ask, the question they make the metrics, it is really means that in higher education, something it's a different scale of measurement. So, however, all are going on that speed. We need to go with them. Other way around, we cannot question them. The problem is. So therefore, there is always pros and cons, but we always look at the positivity and we look forward to have a good collaborations, good interactions during these 2 days conferences on this library science as well as the library and information science. It has changed now. So I hope everyone will have a very good time here. So people who are coming from all over the country may be here and they may like the Mysore very much. I hope you will all enjoy your stay here and thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir. May I bring to your notice that as we are witnessing this inaugural ceremony, as we will be witnessing the technical sessions, we are running an interesting experiment here. All the talks are being recorded and will be summarized by using an AI tool, and the participants will get to participate in an interesting quiz for which the questions will be generated by AI tool automatically. So I hope most of you have received the login credentials through your email. For those of you who are yet to receive, you may please contact Mr. Pramod from Academic AI. This interesting and exciting experiment is being powered by Academic AI. And at the end of this conference, during the valedictory ceremony, exciting prizes will be given away to the winners. So we are not only preaching, we are practicing here what we are about to preach. So drawing curtains to this inaugural ceremony, I now invite the Secretary of MILAN and the Organizing Secretary of this conference, Dr. Rajendra Babu, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon to all of you. Before I start rendering my vote of thanks, I just wanted to say one or two sentences about how we started this conference. As Shalini was mentioning, we have received a lot of articles, but we have ruthlessly rejected many of the articles because of the relevancy, and also we have conducted plagiarism checks using AI orientation. So with that, we are very proud and we are happy to say that though it is 25 articles, but we are very clean volume with what we have in our hands. So with that, I wholeheartedly thank all of them, those who have joined hands to make this conference a success. To start with, when we requested Professor Padma of Balram sir, though I read a lot of his editorials in current sciences, and many editorials about library and information science also is written on this in scholarly writing. Sir, with now from Milan, from Middlesex and University Library, I wholeheartedly thank you for your time and the discussions you in our minds. So thanks a lot, sir. I request Dr. Meera to honor the token of appreciation to Professor Balram sir. So I thank Professor Lokanath sir, who has been right from the day when we went to meet him. He has spent a lot of time with us, with our president, and he was discussing about Professor Balram sir. And I know as a university faculty how difficult it is to make time for a vice chancellor to sit here for almost 2 years, so 2 hours. So on behalf of Milan, Middlesex, and also on my personal behalf, I thank you wholeheartedly, sir. I request Mr. Vatam to hand over the token for appreciation to Professor Lokanath sir. So Professor Srinath is here, and he has given a lot of whatever we were thinking as a things which we have seen it possible, and we will definitely in touch with you, sir, for future discussions. And so on behalf of Milan, Middlesex, and University Library, I thank you, and I request Dr. Sunit Mariam to please hand over a token of appreciation to Professor Srinath Srinivasa. I know personally Professor Shalini Madam almost 30 years now. She's been the guiding force behind this conference, and she's been the motivation for us to organize this conference. So on behalf of, and as everybody says, she needs more introduction. On behalf of Milan, Middlesex, and our own baby, so we thank you, madam, and I request Dr. Jagdish to token of appreciation towards this. Thank you, madam. One person who has not slept last night to make sure this conference is happening or not. And I got at least in this last 1 month, at least 2,000 calls from Dr. Meera. So she's been there for us forever. Even at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, we used to have a discussion on these things. Thank you, madam, on behalf of all of us. Thanks for whatever you have done. I request him to please have a token of appreciation. So my guide and also the chairman of the department, he also would have not slept last night with a lot of other responsibilities, and probably the youngest among the whole group, Professor Chandrasekhar is here. So thanks a lot for all the guidance and support you have rendered us, sir. I request Dr. Ashok to please hand over a token of appreciation to us, please. So I thank all the paper contributors, though they have accepted or not, their enthusiasm towards this. This is a new concept, probably first of its kind in our known history. The kind of a conference we are conducting, and a lot of responses have come for this. We thank all of them. I thank all the sponsors who have made this conference a success. Sponsors like Turnitin, Easily, TLS Group, Balani Infotech, Drillbit, IOP Publishing, SSPH, Rapid Radio, Keyboard Digital, and Inclusive Libraries, and 2CQR. Though all of them have come forward to support us to make this conference a success. So thanks a lot due to all of them. I thank special thanks to Mr. N. D. Satyanarayana, senior-most MILAN members, Dr. Rajendra Kumar PY, and VP Prakash, and all our faculty members like Malina Kumar sir and Kaisanika madam, all of them and all those who have made this conference a success. So thanks a lot. I thank all the MILAN and MILAN EC members, because without your support, we have taken a lot of drastic decisions in conducting this conference, and everybody supported us to make this conference a difference. So we thank all of them, and they have been behind us, supporting us. Thanks a lot. I thank organizing secretaries Sunil and for providing a very good breakfast. I'm sure everything will be good food wise, and also Nandish and all the MILAN members and EC members supporting us. I thank Dr. Rupesh Kumar, who has been very good at delivering or driving the whole session as MC. And I thank Dr. NSH, who is here, both presenting, conducting a conference, presenting, accepting, submitting papers, as well as doing a lot of AI initiatives, which Rupesh has just now referred to. So thanks a lot for you and your team, sir. And I thank all the media members, live streaming team, including Hernan sir, and all other those who are directly and indirectly helping this conference to make a success. Finally, I thank all the students, research scholars who have been instrumental, and they are the backbone for organizing this conference. Thanks a lot. In the interest of time, so we have speeding up this valedictory. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day.
And as I know, one person who has had not one but many sleepless nights is Dr. Rajendra Babu, who is calling himself for making this happen. A huge round of applause to Dr. Rajendra Babu, who is the organizing secretary of this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, the inaugural ceremony concludes here. This will be followed by IT. Thank you very much for being part of the inaugural. Stay tuned for the technical section 1, which will begin soon after the IT, which is in about 10 minutes from now. Let's assemble back here after IT. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, I request the presenters of the papers to upload their papers, the presentation files to the computer available here. Mr. Madesh Gowda will assist you in doing so. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Yes, sir.